Hi folks, this is all the fruit and I'm back in Germany. Well, it's the 25th of March, it's spring, so let's see what we can forage around here and also what we can say about the weather of the last couple months, because the weather of the last couple months will also influence the availability of fruits and other things to forage around here. Heidelberg and the surrounding area is very mild for German standards, so a lot of very frost standard things are being cultivated here, which goes quite well in years with mild winters and hot summers, but the fruit availability can be drastically reduced if the winter was harsh. Well, something that does well even in harsh winters are the ornamental cherry blossoms. Tasty and nutritious. Also, those are quite bitter. Yeah. Oh my. Those are very bitter. It's a good bitterness. The bitterness of bitter almonds. But still, I wouldn't eat too many of those flowers. Yeah, a big bowl of salad of those flowers could actually kill you. Yeah, I'm surprised how bitter they are. Usually cherry blossoms are not that bitter. Well, stay away from the daffodils, they're even more toxic. Here we have some fruity stuff to forage, a ginkgo tree. Some fruits are still hanging on the branches, but they are too high. Here is a fruit on the ground. It smells like puke. I never eat those. I tried them once or twice, but they also taste like puke. What is a lot more delicious, however, are the seeds. Well, the seeds are a staple in East Asia, much more important than the fruit. However, there is a lot of work in processing them. First you have to crack this hard shell, then you have to peel the seed out of a brown skin, then you have to roast it, and you have a lot of work for one handful, and then you end up with something that tastes like boring corn, basically. The cherry blossoms are very popular, of course. There is an even better place here in Heidelberg, and in nearby Schwetzingen there is a whole garden of ornamental cherries, of cherry blossoms. Maybe I should go there. What about mushrooms? No, nothing along this tree here. Ornamental roses, those are semi-deciduous, meaning they are keeping a lot of their leaves over the winter. Now in spring, the new leaves are out. Already a bit tough, but tasty and nutritious. Soon, tasty rose petals will be available. Could also eat a couple of the apricot flowers, but those, I'll wait for the fruits. Also, here's some lavender, if you want to have a nice clean smell. You can already forage it. It has no flowers, but the leaves are good enough if you crush them. Yeah, why not eat a couple apricot flowers? Come on. Quite different. They're still a bit bitter, but they mostly taste of tea. Over there, ornamental pear flowers. I remember that the fruity pears had the tastiest flowers of all rosaceae, but the ornamental pear flowers usually tasted horrible. However, down here in this protected sheltered place, there are a couple silver berries in mild winters you can have the fruits even in January or February. Now was a winter which is not too mild and also not too harsh, so you can see the whole plant is covered with green berries which start ripening, thousands of them. So in early April we will be able to harvest good fruits. But here are a couple branches where the fruits are already quite ripe. Ain't that amazing, folks? Ripe fruits in Germany in March, and not one or two, but actually quite a reasonable amount to harvest now, and a lot more to harvest in a week or two. They have a big seed inside, which takes up quite a lot of the fruit. However, it's actually a big fibrous seed. It's actually edible and tastes of raw peanuts. Look at that. This is actually a good variety. They are reasonably ripe. So yeah, you can forage fresh fruits in Germany in March, and I'm sure even in January and February you could forage here some in those shelters location. Interesting. What was this apricot grafted on? Looks like it was grafted on a cherry plum. However, I'm not sure if it's really grafted, because yeah, there are cherry plum twigs here, which I'm gonna eat. But not around the other apricots. This seems like it was grafted on a normal plum. Interesting. And this, yeah, but I wonder, was this one really grafted on a cherry plum, or did a cherry plum grow there? By the way, the leaves taste bitter. It's a nice bitterness, and an almond bitterness, a bitter almond bitterness, but still. Another bitter thing you can forage in spring are the dandelions. I don't like them. They are too bitter for me. No, they are not too bitter. Now they're okay. Later they become much more bitter. Don't forage the toxic Lactuca virosa. This is actually an opium substitute. Quite a potent and traditional drug. Well, since I'm here, let's eat a couple ornamental rose flowers. Yeah. The ornamental ones don't taste so good. A bit bitter and with an interesting savory flavor, like fried meat. Yeah, like a barbecue, a wok full of fat where you fry meat and fish and other things. And those are the pedancles are really crunchy. When I say it's not as good as the normal fruity pear flowers, I don't mean it's really bad, but the other ones are much better. Cardamine, a nice mustard relative. The whole plant is edible. Yep. Still nice. Mustardy, but not too mustardy. It is hot, but also savory. It's not old enough to be very bitter. So yeah, quite a good stuff. Here I say couple muscari. Those are being eaten on a large scale in Italy. They collect the seeds, which look like tiny silver onions, but they don't taste like onions, and they pickle them just like tiny silver onions. And basically, yeah, you eat something that looks like an onion, but doesn't have the taste of an onion, but only the taste of the brine you pickle them in. Don't even know if they are edible raw. I mean, if they're edible pickled, then all the parts should be edible raw, but I'm not sure. I know they have toxic relatives. In the liliaceae you have to be very careful. There are actually a lot of liliaceae which can kill you when foraging. So we are not gonna try those now. A lot of random forest leaves are edible. Here we have the European hornbeam. At that stage, they are still soft enough, already a bit tough and chewy, also still quite nutritious. Can also eat beech leaves, which are a lot more sour. Oak leaves, I guess, will be too bitter because of the tannic acid. But basically a hornbeam and especially beech are some of my favorite spring forest leaves to eat. Some frost hardy palms. Let's see, Trachycarpus fortunei, the hemp palm or the Himalaya palm. The name says it, it comes from the Himalayas. The heart of palm is quite tasty and you can use the fibers. They are very strong. I hoped for some fruits, but it seems that in this tree they have all fallen off the inflorescence. The same thing here. So no tasty palm fruits for me this time. Also no tasty beech leaves, it seems. The hornbeam developed a lot earlier than the beech. So many beech hedges, but not a single green leaf to forage. What a pity. Rosemary and thyme. Some nice Mediterranean herbs which in a traditional German winter they would have never survived, especially in this exposed location here, in a not only in a pot but even in a pot that's on the wall. In the traditional winter they would have frozen, but now with climate change and quite mild winters, you see, they have survived. They look a little bit, well, I don't know, maybe the rosemary suffered a little bit. But no, even the thyme looks good. So yeah, I think that would have been quite impossible 20, 30 years ago. Back then they could survive only in very sheltered locations. The evergreen Laurel cherry, a species that usually contains a lot of cyanide. Yeah. Flower buds are a bit bitter, also a bit tough. Yeah. I would say in this stage not worth foraging. Maybe I'll try them again when the flowers are developed. The fruits are okay if they are fully ripe. If they are not fully ripe, they are so bitter, they are toxic. By the way, did I manage that the whole area I'm foraging right now is an old bell factory? You know what an old bell factory means? Heavy metal. Lots of heavy metal in the soil. They say that they have replaced everything to a depth of several meters, but do I really trust them? Also, tree roots can go down several meters. So actually, this is pretty much the worst place to do any foraging in the center of Heidelberg. Actually, I know the area from the time before it was developed, where some alternative center was in the old bell factory, and they were told by the city they can do whatever they want, just don't plant a fruit and veggie garden because the soil is totally toxic here. Cherry plum has flowered quite early. You can already see the tiny fruits. The flowers and leaves are also edible, but it's the one rosaceae fruit where the unripe fruits are actually so tasty that they are being sold on markets in several countries. you try to sell blue plums or Mirabelle unripe fruits, they taste horrible. But the cherry plum fruits, see them? They are teeny tiny, they get a bit bigger, you get a nice tasty snack. Couple more greens you can forage in spring. In temperate Europe, Ranunculus vicaria, the flowers and leaves are edible. The leaves are already getting a bit mustardy. The flowers still young. This was actually very important because in times when Central and Western Europe still had a very harsh climate, scurvy was a big problem because you had no greens in winter, and in many areas those were the first young greens which would heal the scurvy of the starved people in spring. So the German name is Scharboxkraut, which basically means scurvy herb. It's the herb that heals scurvy just because it's the first herb they will give you vitamin C and all the other minerals and vitamins you are missing throughout the winter. Another important plant you can forage in Europe, actually a tropical plant that's evergreen. It's the ivy. No, you cannot eat it, but you can use it to wash your clothes and to stun fish with it. My Dixie wrecked, so this is some stuff you can use in Europe to hunt fish. Just don't let the cops catch you. Here, some maple. It's the field maple, Aza campestre. A lot of people say maples are great for foraging, but for me, most parts at most times of the year are too bitter. This now is okay. Just a trace of bitterness. A bit sour and savory. Good taste actually. Okay taste with a bit of salt and vinegar and a couple other things. This could be quite a good salad. Another interesting plant, the stingless nettle. It's not even closely related to the nettles, it just has similar leaves, but the flowers are very different. The plant is very aromatic when you use it, or its relatives. When foraging, don't use too much. Right now it's still young, but the flavor can be overwhelming. Also, you can take the little flowers and suck out the nectar. Didn't work. If you are lucky, you actually really get a drop of sweet stuff in your mouth. But actually the flowers are much more tender than the leaves, so even without the nectar, they are good. What was this? Was this called Choisier ternata? Oh no. No, it's not Acacia quinata. Aloysia? I forgot the name. It's a very frost tender plant that decades ago used to freeze back a lot in Germany. Now, as you can see, it survives without winter protection. It's a Rutaceae, a citrus relative. The leaves are very aromatic, just like citrus leaves. So are the flowers. But actually, I don't know what you can use it for except as an ornamental. I think I should Google it. Here another interesting stuff. Yeah, sorry, not so many fruits, but it's spring. It's not fruit season. Cirsium. A thistle. You can eat the greens, but you can also eat the underground stems. This is Cirsium arvense, the field thistle, which is actually the most noxious weed in all of Germany. Yeah, but you can also, as I said, you can use the underground stems as an asparagus replacement. Here I have something really great. Vogelmiere was the German name. What was the Latin name? Stellaria media. What was the English name? It had a really nice name. You can recognize it quite easily because on the first sight it looks like a very standard little plant without anything special. Small heart-shaped leaves, white flowers. But then if you look closely, you rip it off, and in a lot of the stems, the inside of the stem stretches a little bit further. So this is one sign. It if you want to be absolutely sure. I don't know if I can show this to you on camera, but there is only one single row of hairs going down the stems. The stems, yeah, you can see it. The stems are naked except for one single row of hairs. Well, this stuff will grow if there is enough warmth and moisture at any time of the year. Tastes very nice, refreshing, nutty, savory. One of the best and easiest to forage plant, especially in spring or in mild winters or in wet summers. And those usually you can take a big plant, those are medium size, but even those two plants would be enough for a salad. To take one big plant, you have a salad for a whole family. Another interesting plant, violets. Very nice flowers, aromatic, tasty, sweet. They taste like candy. They taste like violet candy, which is popular in my country of Bulgaria. Actually, in France, they put them in molten sugar and sell them as little treats. Some people call the stinging nettle the most nutritious spring green. It is definitely very nutritious and very stinging. Yeah, I noticed that a lot of Americans are not used to this stuff. It's the most common stinging plant which will hurt you in Europe. Those are still very young. I didn't feel any stingers, but I'm rolling those between my fingers because if I put them in my mouth I will feel stingers. Tastes a little bit hairy, but it has a good rich taste. And also, yeah, it's supposed to be very nutritious and very rich in iron. And it's already of a good size so that you can use it in large amounts. Another tasty plant is the common daisy. You can eat the whole plant, but since the leaves are so close to the ground, easiest thing to do is to eat the aromatic flowers. Nice. Now, I saw around here a couple things you should not eat. A Senecio species. Those Asteraceae are so toxic that even if you have too much of it in your meadow and you feed your hay or you keep horses or other animals on the pasture, or you harvest the hay and sell it, you can actually kill grazing animals. It's most notorious with horses. Another group of plants you should never eat are the spurges. Here is one species. Now that I'm looking for them, I cannot find them. Here a bigger Senecio. Stay away from those. Yeah. Here a nice beautiful spurge. Also stay away from those. Oh. Ah, come on. This survived from last year because it's quite tough. They have milky sap. There is one rule: never eat anything if it has a milky sap. There are a lot of things with milky sap which are edible, but most of things with milky sap are not edible. Mellow. Very nice and tasty. Actually, marshmallow was originally made from mellow roots. Marshmallows were made from mellow roots. And here in Germany, the fruits were quite popular, especially after World War II. They look like little cheeselets, so they were put on bread. And old people still swear they even taste like bread, and they saved them over the hungry times after World War II. This Magnolia has almost finished flowering, most of the flowers on the ground. Magnolias can be quite toxic, but the flowers are usually good to eat, and they have they are gingery and refreshing, and each species has a slightly different flavor. Yeah, can compare them a lot to ginger or medicine. A lot of almonds persist on the trees during winter, and the ornamental peach almond is no exception. Oh. Here it is, and there is a good chance this almond is still completely edible. However, with my soft shoes and no visible loose rocks around, they are too hard to crack them with your teeth. Now I lost it. Where did it go? Here it is. Unlike normal almonds, the ornamental peach almonds are too hard to crack with your teeth. Last summer was very dry, so you can see the fruit is very small. Here some have fallen apart. Yeah, here is one which is germinating. Let's see. Some nuts become tastier when germinating. Walnuts, for example, they become really disgusting. Nice. This one is nice, yeah. Really nice. You can also eat the flowers. People are looking, what is this crazy guy doing? This is what the Germans would call a cedar. Cedrus, probably Cedrus libani. It's different from what the Americans would call a cedar. It's one of the plants where you can supposedly eat the pollen, which is supposed to be a superfood, but flowering season has not arrived yet. Here on the ground, Plantago media. Good food. Also good for treating wounds. Tastes a lot like mushrooms, and I've been told when you cook it, tastes even more like mushrooms. But this, even in the raw state, just like eating a thin, crunchy mushroom. Flowering quince, and I have planted a lot of different varieties, as you can see from the different color of the flowers. The flowers are all edible. There are big differences in taste, just as they are with the fruits. Usually in spring, here I would find a lot of edible fruits, even hanging on the bushes, but even more of them lying on the ground. I suppose the winter was a little bit too harsh, because cannot spot a single one. Well, also the summer was quite hot and dry, so not too many good fruits developed probably. But no, it's actually the first spring for several years where I don't find a single fruit here. Okay, I'll just eat the flowers then. The mistletoes are hanging full of fruits. Mistletoe is a parasite, however those are not, they don't seem to be doing well. This American black walnut tree seems to be killing off a lot of its branches, so a lot of the mistletoe plants are also dying. The fruits are not edible, but they're very sticky. Why are they sticky? Well, because when a bird eats them, and the bird sits on a branch and poops on the branch, the seed has to develop a sort of appendix or tentacle to get through the rind of the tree and get into the tree and suck on its and suck out its juices. And in order for it to do this, it needs some time. So for this time, for hours and days and maybe weeks, the seed has to be stuck to the tree with glue, and the glue is the juice of the fruit. Some of those are so glue-like that they were used. Bird hunters would smear the glue made from those fruits on sticks and then put them in areas where birds would like to land, near water or near food. The birds would land on those sticks, get stuck, and the hunters would collect the birds and sell them or eat them. So don't eat the fruits. Also don't use them for catching birds. That's illegal nowadays. I said the mistletoes are growing on a black American walnut. What's the difference between the black American walnut and the Persian walnut? In the Persian walnut, 3 to 4 days after the first rain, once they are ripe, they will start rotting. In the American walnut, this one has opened already, but there are also a lot of fruits or a lot of seeds, or no, this has opened already. A lot of walnuts which are not open yet. So about half of those walnuts which are still closed will be rotten, but half will still have edible seeds. You can see that the tree is not feeling well, not only because the mistletoes are dying. I mean, they are parasites. They will suck out the juices, and even only when the tree runs out of juices in those branches are they dying. Also the seeds of this tree are very tiny. They were more than twice the size 3 or 4 years ago. Also the tree is bleeding here. I'm afraid this American walnut is really not in a good condition. It might die within the next couple years. Another important tree for foraging in spring is the birch. You can eat all the flowers and young leaves. Packed full of pollen. I guess those flowers must be a superfood. This is also the time of the year where you can tap the stem. Don't do it here, it's in a public park. The sap you'll get out of it is a lot less sweet than maple sap. That's why it's not being used to make birch syrup. It's being sold as birch water. Also, you can use the bark for starting a fire when it's wet. Never gets too wet to start a fire. And you can use the wood for maintaining a fire when it's wet. The birch is actually the most important plant for foraging in the Russian taiga. In that cold climate, there is no other tree that has as many uses as the birch. Of course, they make alcoholic drinks from the birch water. It does contain some amount of sap, of sugar, after all. Of course, our protein-hungry American friends will say, what do I need? Berries and greens and flowers. I will just forage a bunch of pigeons. However, birds for us are not food, they are friends. Well, okay, you could eat those. The Germans call them the rats of the air. Actually, this nice lady here is committing a felony by feeding them, but I'm not showing her face, so I guess she'll get off without a fine. Ground elder is another plant the Germans who survived World War II are very familiar with. It grows pretty much in every garden and park. It's quite impossible to kill it or eat all of it. It's actually a noxious weed. Tastes like parsley or celery. Well, some a little bit less interesting type of parsley and celery. And because it's such a noxious weed, a lot of Germans in the hungry years after World War II Had nothing else to eat but ground elder, so they hate the taste now. Nowadays Germans are too rich to eat it, so it's almost impossible to remove it from a garden. Here we have Cotoneaster zaliciifolius, one big common cotoneaster grown in parks here, and after some winters, probably after very mild winters, in March, April and even May, it's still covered with its pink berries. Now I cannot see a single pink berry, which could also be a sign of the more harsh winter. Can find a couple berries here on the ground. Usually after very mild winters, a plant of this size could still have buckets and buckets of berries growing on it. It's a problem because this is not such a good thing, because unlike some other cotoneaster species, those are bitter, so you can collect buckets and buckets of them, but I don't know a way to remove the bitterness actually. An exotic maple, I think it's the Japanese maple. Yeah, flowers, fruits, leaves and young shoots are edible. Actually not bitter, a bit sour, quite good. Tastes more or less like peach, not like birch, like peach, like the stuff that had still not developed, so we couldn't try it. Aralia, or the devil's walking stick. It's very spiny, that's why it's called the devil's walking stick. You touch it, you get hurt if you don't remove the spines first, but I read that actually the young shoots are a popular vegetable somewhere, but I'm not sure, so don't get poisoned and then blame me for it. Rape or rapeseed, the most popular oil plant in Germany. A lot of Germany is actually quite yellow in April because of giant fields of this plant. Actually, they even putting it into car fuel. That's why like 10-15 years ago even China was growing it on giant pieces of lands to fuel German cars. Ain't that crazy? China exporting cooking oil to put it into German car tanks. Well, the oil comes from the fruits, but it's maybe the tastiest mustard to eat in spring. Here somebody has fed the birds with a couple of seeds, and a couple of seeds got lost last year, so there are just a few plants. But if you go to a German field in spring, you can eat so much of it. The lower part of the stem, they're already tough fibers, not so good to eat, but the fibers are only around the periphery. I can eat the center, it's so incredibly tasty. Yeah. Rapeseed stalks and buds and young leaves, they are amazing. I love this stuff. Willows are not edible due to the salicylic acid. You know what the trade name of salicylic acid is? It's aspirin. Yeah, this is the original aspirin. That's why a lot of the old trappers and so they were using the decoction of willow bark as an antiseptic. So if you need aspirin in the wild, find the willow, but I don't know which willows are better for it. However, also has some other uses. It has been used for hundreds, maybe thousands of years as a toothbrush. You just chew up the end to separate the fibers. Yes, it's bitter. And brush your teeth with it. Not only will the soft fibers, if you are careful enough, clean your teeth without damaging your gums, but also because it has an antiseptic, it will actually help with gum infections and stuff like that. However, don't blame me if it doesn't work with you. As usual, the natural remedies have been replaced by some more convenient and more efficient pills like, well, aspirin. A wild carrot, quite a big one. Yeah, I mean, you can confuse it with a lot of other things. It smells exactly like a carrot. There was some reason why you shouldn't eat too much of the wild carrot. It's much easier to recognize it once it's flowering, because all the flowers are white, just the central flower is purple or black or at least pink. But when it's flowering, it's too tough to eat. Now is the right time to eat it. You can eat the whole plant, leaves and roots and everything. The root will be thin and stringy, but it will make your food taste like carrots. See the yuccas growing here? Here they are not yucca trees. Only small species survive the German winter. The leaves are very tough. You can get very tough fibers from those leaves. You can even see the fibers. Well, you can eat the fruits and flowers, and you can make the young stalks into alcohol. Used to be a popular way to use it in America. But even now in winter you can actually use the buds, like the tips of the stems. You can cook them for food. They often have a lot of oxalate, but they're usually edible. And you can take the roots and use them for soap or for stunning fish. My Dixie wrecked? A honey locust tree. Hundreds of huge fruits still hanging there, but a little bit too high. A couple are already on the ground. This fruit is edible and will remain edible for many months until spring, until now. When you open it, it is filled with a yellowish greenish goo. It's quite dried up in this one. Often you can squeeze it out. That's why it's called honey locust. However, the quality of the honey can be very different. Yeah, too dried up, maybe too old. Quality of the honey can be very different. It can taste like really nice gooseberry or kiwi jam, or it can taste so disgustingly that you will never try it again. No, so too old already. Sometimes they are good in winter, maybe because the ground is wet now, but the last couple of days were quite dry, so maybe they are not soaked enough for the stuff to turn into jam. Again, I guess it dried up during the last days. Still, from autumn to spring, this is a big fruit which is worth trying if you are not afraid of tasting a bad one. If it's good, it's quite good. If it's bad, it's one of the worst fruit tastes you can imagine. Forsythia is one of those plants which for decades I was told is toxic. Then later I ate it, it's actually edible. Choose for yourself what you want to believe. Very specific flavor. Like some sort of shampoo. Not too bad, but strange. Actually, some wood sorrels survive the winter. This is totally edible now. I hope you understood me over the skater here. So this wood sorrel is totally edible now, but okay, I guess too many dogs pee here, so I'm not gonna eat it. Some bigger ornamental mellows. Winter cannot have been too harsh because the stalks survived. The mellow I showed you before was most probably Malva sylvestris. This is Malva sylvestris var. It's the big dark purple one. Var Mauritiana or something like this. Well, still totally edible. Tasty. I knew a vegan in Arizona. She knew everything you could forage in the wild. 90% of the time he was just eating mellow. It was his favorite thing. It was really his thing, eating mellow. Here we have rucola. Maybe the most fancy mustard. Well, it was a fancy mustard when I was young. Now it's a mainstream mustard. I like it only when it's very young. Oh, it already packs a punch. Really hot and flavorful, but at least it's not tough or bitter. Good stuff, folks. Interesting. I saw a lot of Oregon grape in flower. Those are still in buds. Here the first ones are starting to open. The fruits are totally edible, although it's advisable to cook them first. There are some toxins which you destroy by cooking. I wonder if the flowers are just as edible. I should. Nice and sour. I should figure out if bigger amounts will harm me. This school is cultivating a lot of tulips. They're already starting to flower here. Despite the winter being harsher than some of the last ones, everything is still quite early now. This can be a good thing because you get fruits early. It can also be a bad thing because the stuff can freeze during late frosts in April and even May. Here we have a thing which has become introduced to Germany on a larger scale only in the last decades, the Locust. It's still not become a mainstream fruit tree in Germany. Why? Because as you can see, most of those inflorescences were killed off by the frost. A normal 21st century German winter, the tree and even the leaves can survive it quite well. Even the young fruits, but not the flowers. Look at it, dozens and dozens of inflorescences which were killed off. However, down here, a lot of tender grass where dogs used to mark their territory. This is Poa annua, one of very few plants which grow worldwide. This was even introduced to Antarctica by humans. It is nice and tender and grows all the time as long as there are temperatures over zero and enough moisture. However, as humans, we are not good at digesting grass. We lack those bacteria that cows and horses and other animals have in their stomachs. So usually grass is not for us. We should stick to herbs and trees, young parts of trees, because we can digest those better than grass. This is what Germans call April weather, although nowadays it often comes in March and even in February. Basically, you get sun, you get wind, you get clouds, you get heavy rain, everything within a day, often several times. I mean, this is okay, even if you get snow or hail during this typical April weather, it's okay. Only frost can be very bad, especially now that after it has been mild for a long time and a lot of plants are developing. Yeah, frost, especially strong frost, can actually be quite harmful and can break or make. Of course, the frost breaks and the lack of frost makes. The late frost breaks and the lack of late frost makes the local fruit season, which is quite important because this area for centuries has been pretty reliant on fruit production.